I don't know how many years on this earth I got left. I'm gonna get real weird with it.
Hello my darlings, it's Chanel and welcome to a Get Real Weird With It vlog, where I talk about weird, old, fringe and less mainstream books. I am going to start with a book I did DNF, but it was a book that was recommended to me many times, and that book was The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks. You have a father and son, an estranged brother, and basically the kiddo that's still at home went through a bit of a teenage phase of killing animals and other children. His brother is in the nut house for his penchant for eating dogs. But alas, Big Bro has escaped the mental asylum, and now baby brother is basically doing a Kevin McAllister and booby trapping their family farm and getting it ready for war with his big brother. I decided, I had a few Patreon members give me a heads up that this does contain a lot of animal torture, killing and children being murdered, and so I thought, okay, I'll try it. If I'm not loving it and it's not worth having to read those scenes, I will DNF it. And that's what happened. The writing style just didn't really mesh with me. I didn't find myself caring about the story, and I honestly felt that the violence was gratuitous. It just felt violent for violence sake. The story and the way it was told also felt repetitive. It felt very circular, and I was happy to put it down. But read it. If you like measurements, dead animals, and making things go boom. The next book I picked up is How to Fuck Like a Girl by Vera Blossom, who is a trans woman of color. It said that it was a collection of essays, but to me it did feel much more like a memoir. The author was recounting their personal experiences with sex, gender identity, with a very big focus on femininity. The writing style felt very Tumblr, but it was entertaining to read. And as the author says, I did not ever aspire to fit in. I enjoyed reading this, and I would say read it if you like Cher, glamour magic, and personal stories about being trans. I then picked up Sexy Tales of Paleontology by Patrick Lenton, and this is a collection of many short stories of magical realism, speculative fiction, and general queertastic weirdness. There are 23 stories in here, so I will not talk about all of them. We'll start with the opening story, 43 Rats. Are the 43 rats in a trench coat having an existential crisis? Or is it about the gay agenda? Or something else entirely? The Man Who Shot the Moon. In this, you have a sexbot who has a pecker like the flagpole in front of the White House and boots with the furs. This sexbot gains sentience and organizes a robot uprising. Unfortunately, they were defeated and left to form their own colony in the Wild Wild West until one day humanity comes knocking on their door for their assistance. And I'll just leave it there. That's chess, baby. An unbeaten chess master plays against a chess robot and learns a lot about friendship and long-term strategy. And the last story I'll leave you with is The Anniversary. A super quirky couple gets divorced by burning down the house. I would say read this collection of stories if you like brunch, homing pigeons, and velociraptor vengeance. The next book I picked up was sent to me by House of Blood Press, and this is Red Flags by Charlene Alsby. So this is split up into different parts. So in the beginning, you have Red Flags, which is a collection of short stories, and then Charlene Alsby's previous work that was published in the past by a publisher who's now having a Me Too moment have been reprinted. So you've got another collection of short stories as well as some singular ones. So I'll sort of go through them all for you. Personally, the collection of the Red Flag stories is my favorite short story collection I have ever read, and I don't really like short story collections. So the Red Flags one, fantastic. So we'll start with the Red Flags short stories. So this is a collection of short stories that focuses on the death throes and final thoughts of dying characters. We start off with Whitefish for Luna, which was one of my favorite stories, in which a lady is hit by a car and dragged across the tarmac whilst trying to bring home food for her kitty cat. Whilst lying beneath her metal coffin with her viscera decorating the bitumen, she naturally begins stressing about her cat dying of starvation because no one else knows that little Luna is locked in the house without food. Could relate with those being my dying thoughts. Then we have The Most Beautiful Woman in the World, in which a mistress leaves a lifelong mark on her lover's missus via a revolving door. This was also great. We then have I Wish Cancer Was Contagious. That's all I'm going to say about that story. That was a 5 out of 5 for me. We have Red Flags, the titular story. He says he needed me to know what he'd done, what he might have done, and to know that I still loved him. And at the time, I didn't think of it as a warning. I didn't know to think that the point of the warning was so he'd feel better about following through. And he knew enough about himself to anticipate that he'd follow through one day. So those were all of the stories in Red Flags, which are just oozing with dark humor and depressive death-kissed downpours. You'll feel like you've been hit with a brutally honest car, but you'll hobble away thankful to have had your heartbones broken by reading it. Keep on bleeding. We then have the short story Letters to Jenny Just After She Died, which I thought was okay. And this is about a woman who writes letters to her dead BFF and then bangs the guy who moved into her dead BFF's old apartment to try to absorb her spirit. We have another short story called Agony, which I didn't enjoy that much. And this is about fucking and being fucked. We then have the short story collections Dirt, Wet with Blood, and I'm not going to go into these individually, but it's a collection of mixed media pieces. So there are some short stories, there are some poetry, and there are some screenplays. And I thought that was okay. So like I said, the Red Flags short story collection, obsessed. Read this if you like death and dying, black comedy, and drugged tea. We then have Fairy Tales by Petra Collins and Alexa Demi. I purchased this book because I saw it on Gabby Shayen's channel and I was instantly obsessed. I had to know, nope, can't show you that page. There is a lot of nudity in this book. It is a collection of short stories that focus around mythological creatures, like we have a fairy, a banshee, a siren. Let me try and find a page that's not too problematic. We've got beautiful pink cover pages for the title of the story. You then have the story here. So it is written in a text that I personally did find hard to read. And these stories are more like fragments or vignettes than properly fleshed out stories. So look, don't come here for the stories. It's more about the photography in regards to the storytelling. This book to me is like your inner child, but she's all grown up and is a provocative savage. My favorite collection, let me see if I can show you any of it, was the Sirens. There are some absolutely iconic pictures of Demi in this one. I'm not going to go in too close. I did show these on my Patreon, but they were my favorite. There is no boobs in here. Like there are scenes where she is topless, but they have pasties over the nipplage area, but you do see a lot of bums and crotches. Read this if you like slime shibari and sexy pixies. I really enjoyed this. I'm keeping it in my collection. The cover is this beautiful velvet finish with this holographic border and title. And yeah, I love a book about really sexy women dressing up as beasties. It's my kind of coffee table book. So the last book I read is In Utero by Chris Gooch. I'm just going to show you the illustration style before I get into it. It has a limited color palette. So there are a lot of black, reds, white, and occasionally blue and gray. I think it is really striking and effective. I loved the illustration style and I actually really did enjoy the color palette in this. This is a story that all daughters of mothers can relate to, whether they are human or monster. 12 years after a disastrous explosion, 12-year-old Bailey is dropped off to a holiday program run in an abandoned, dilapidated shopping mall. Being the precocious teen that she is, she decides to go exploring because mostly it's just a bunch of little kids. Whilst roaming the deserted halls, she comes across a cool older girl, and this older girl tells her to come check out something really cool in the basement. But upstairs, things are getting alien weird sloppy, and the military hazmat team are called in. I don't want to give anything else away. This book was really fun and gory. It was easy to read and a pleasure to look at. I really loved it. It was my favorite read of this reading vlog. But that being said, you won't get answers to the why, what, when, how, and who of the monsters in this book. But I personally thought it was a sweet, monstrously cozy coming of age story. And I would say read it if you like eggs, shopping malls, epic kaiju monster battles, and making friends. And now it's time for me to do my awards. I will give out the awards in order of my least favorite to my most favorite read. So we have Sexy Tales of Paleontology by Patrick Lenton. And this wins the award for sexy but dangerous bots. We then have How to Fuck Like a Girl by Vera Blossom. And this wins the award for being a queer cutie. I then read Fairy Tales by Petra Collins and Alexa Demie. And this wins the award for most voluptuous, viscous vixens. We have Red Flags by Charlene Ellsby, and this wins the award for keeping death fresh. And my favorite read of this reading vlog was In Utero by Chris Gooch, and this wins the award for most dangerous daycare. So those were all the books I read for this Get Real Weird With It reading vlog. I am heading out today. I have plans to try out a new secondhand store to sell some of my clothing to so that I can thrift more. That's the way we keep this carousel spinning. And then I'm going to go out to a cafe to eat. You want to say hello, Sylvie? Hello, Sylvie. Hello, my beautiful green-eyed girl. Hello, hello, hello. And then I'm going to head to Happy Valley book/lifestyle shop to see what they've got going on there. In there, it's an independent bookstore that sometimes stocks some really interesting, different things. And then I am hoping also to swing past Lulu and Me Cheesecake Shop, where you buy cheesecake by the gram. You just choose how thick of a slab that you want. The kids are meant to come back today, but my ex-husband has decided to head to Esoterica all weekend, so he will not be having the children for about 2 weeks. So he might do me a solid and keep them one more day, and then I would have had 3 nights to myself. So I'm hoping that happens. I really am. I'm not holding out hope for it. I have a feeling when the children hear that they might be spending one more night at their dad's, they could revolt and end up coming home after school. So I'm just assuming they're going to be here. And if they don't turn up and it means I have a night to myself, I will be a very happy lady. So we'll see. I will now leave you with all of the footage from my day out in Melbourne. But until next time, stay weird, Star Child. I did forget to mention I am wearing Dark Rum by Malin Goetz, which is a sample that I'm trying out. To me, it's very soft and sensual, and it smells like you're sitting in a leather armchair by a crackling fire, swirling a cup of brandy or rum, I guess warmed rum, spiced rum, whilst eating sugared plums with a book cracked open on your lap. It's pleasant. I would say it does smell slightly masculine to me, and we'll see what the dry down's like, but it's not as strong as I was anticipating. It is quite melded with my skin already, just gently sitting on the surface. Okay, unfortunately they did not take any of my clothes. They said I'm too petite, and their clientele, they just don't sell that size clothing. So yeah, I'm going to go and try some other places, otherwise I might just give it to friends and family, and then charities.
Spilled the coffee on the guy's jacket.
Okay guys, I'm back from brunch with my ex-husband. Here's a photo he snapped with me, enjoying our time together. I ended up going to Happy Valley and I got this hazel SOH Melbourne candle. It smells so good. It is very masculine, but it also feels like a super fancy, dark-toned hotel, you know, where you're meeting with your lover at midnight for a cocktail by the piano bar. It has mahogany, moss, orange, and rum. I'm obviously on a rum kick.
but I love that. I also got some chocolates for myself. These are Gillian seashells. Unfortunately, the cheesecake shop is not open today. Bummer. And yes, I did not end up selling any of my clothes. I'm going to try on Depop, but I think I'm just going to give most of them away to friends and family and charities. I have let this settle now, and I feel like dark rum is a moody, boozy fruit punch. It's lovely. It doesn't have much staying power on my skin. It's barely there. All that remains is the leather, but the initial fragrance of it is very alcohol fruit heavy. So I don't feel like it's me, but it is lovely and I will wear it. But it's a lighter fragrance. It's not very punchy on my skin, but pleasant. So that is everything for today.
We are the weirdos, mister.